Welcome, everybody, to the Messianic Message. I'm Kimberly Rogers Brown, and we're going to be studying the Mattot and Massei double Torah portion this week. That is Numbers, starting at chapter 30, all the way to 36, verse 13. The Haftarah is Jeremiah chapter 2, verses 4 to 37. And the Brit Hadashah is Luke 13, verses 1 through 9. And so, Father, we thank you for this time that we can be together again, and we just praise you that you bring us back here every week and how you provide for us and protect us. And we thank you and praise you for Michael's healing and how you have orchestrated him being healed. And Father, we also lift up Dee and Roy and her father, James, for his healing, Father. And we just ask that you be with us in this meeting and give us everything that you want us to know. In Yeshua's name, amen. Okay, so I'm going to start reading at the start, which is Numbers 30, verse 1, and then Michael will read up to verse 16. Numbers 30, verse 1. Moses spoke to the heads of the tribes of the children of Israel, saying, "This is the thing which Yahweh has commanded. When a man vows a vow to Yahweh, or swears an oath to bind his soul with a bond, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceeds out of his mouth. Also, when a woman vows a vow to Yahweh and binds herself by a bond, being in her father's house in her youth, and her father hears her vow and her bond with which she has bound her soul, and her father says nothing to her, then all her vows shall stand, and every bond with which she has bound her soul shall stand. But if her father forbids her in the day that he hears, none of her vows or of her bonds with which she has bound her soul shall stand. Yahweh will forgive her because her father has forbidden her. If she has a husband while her vows are on her, or the rash utterance of her lips with which she has bound her soul, and her husband hears it and says nothing to her in the day that he hears it, then her vows shall stand, and her bonds with which she has bound her soul shall stand. But if her husband forbids her in the day that he hears it, then he shall make void her vow which is on her, and the rash utterance of her lips with which she has bound her soul. Yahweh will forgive her. But the vow of a widow, or of her who is divorced, everything with which she has bound her soul shall stand against her. If she vowed in her husband's house, or bound her soul by a bond with an oath. Okay, Michael, verse 11. Verse 11.
I can barely see it. And her husband heard it and held his peace at her and didn't disallow her, then all her vows shall stand, and every bond with which she bound her soul shall stand. But if her husband made them all null and void in the day that he heard them, then whatever proceeded out of her lips concerning her vows or concerning the bond of her soul shall not stand. Her husband has made them void. Yahweh will forgive her. Every vow and every binding oath to afflict the soul, the husband may establish it on her husband, may make it void. But if her husband altogether says nothing to her from day to day, then he establishes all her vows or all her bonds, which are on her he has established them, because he said nothing to her in the day that he heard them. But if he makes them null and void after he has heard them, then he shall bear iniquity. There are the same statutes Yahweh commanded Moses between a man and his wife, between a father and his daughter, being in her youth, in her father's house.
Thank you. Dawn, chapter 31, verses 1 through 10, please.
And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Take vengeance on the Midianites for the children of Israel. Afterward you shall be gathered to your people. So Moses spoke to the people, saying, Arm some of yourselves for war, and let them go against the Midianites to take vengeance for Yahweh on Midian. 1,000 from each tribe of all the tribes of Israel you shall send to war. So there were recruited.
Oh
So
my,
there
I'm
were
I'm so sorry. I hit
Go
a
ahead.
button. Go ahead.
Okay. So there were recruited from the divisions of Israel 1,000 from each tribe, 12,000 armed for war. Then Moses sent them to war, 1,000 from each tribe. He sent them to war with Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the priest, with the holy articles and the signal trumpets in his hand. And they warred against the Midianites, just as Yahweh commanded Moses. And they killed all the males. They killed the kings of Midian with the rest of those who were killed, Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, and Reba, the 5 kings of Midian. Balaam, the son of Beor, they also killed with the sword. And the children of Israel took the women of Midian captive with their little ones, and took as spoil all their cattle, all their flocks, and all their goods. They also burned with fire all the cities where they dwelt, and all of their forts.
Okay, John, verses 11 through 20, please.
They took all the plunder and spoils, including the people and animals, and brought the captives, spoils and plunder, to Moses and Eleazar the priest, and the Israelite assembly at their camp on the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho. Moses, Eleazar the priest, and all the leaders of the community went to meet them outside the camp. Moses was angry with the officers of the army, the commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds, who returned from the battle. Have you allowed all the women to live? He asked them. They were the ones who followed Balaam's advice and enticed the Israelites to be unfaithful to the Lord in the Peor accident, so that a plague struck the Lord's people. Now, kill all the boys and kill every woman who has slept with a man, but save for yourselves every girl who has never slept with a man. Anyone who has killed someone or touched someone who was killed must stay outside the camp 7 days. On the 3rd and 7th days, you must purify yourselves and your captives. Purify every garment as well as everything made of leather, goat hair, or wood.
Thank you. Debbie, verses 21 through 30, please.
Then Eleazar the Cohen said to the soldiers who had gone to the front, This is the regulation from the Torah which Jehovah has ordered Moshe. Even though gold, silver, brass, iron, tin, and lead and all will stand fire, so that you are indeed to purify everything made of these materials by having been passed through fire. Nevertheless, they must also be purified with the water for purification. Everything that can't withstand fire, you are to have go through the water. On the seventh day, you are to wash your clothes, and you will be clean. After that, you may enter the camp. Jehovah said to Moshe, take the booty, both people and animals, you and Eleazar the Kohen and the leaders of the clans in the community, and divide the booty into two parts, half for the experienced soldiers who went out to battle, and half for the rest of the community. From the portion of the soldiers who went out to the battle, levy a tax for Jehovah consisting of 1/5 of the person, cattle, donkey, and sheep, taking it from their half and give it to Eleazar the Kohen as a portion set apart from Jehovah. From the half that goes to the people of Israel, you are to take 1/5 of the persons and of the cattle, donkeys, and sheep, that is of all the livestock, and give them to the Levites, taking care of the tabernacle of Jehovah.
Okay, thank you. Jimmy, verses 31 through 40, please.
Moses and Eleazar the priest did just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Now the spoils that remained from the plunder, which the men of war had plundered, was 675,000 sheep, 72,000 cattle, 61,000 donkeys, and the captive people of the women who had not known a man intimately. In all were 32,000 people. The half share of those who went to war was as follows. The number of sheep was 337,500,000. The Lord's tribute tax of the sheep was 675. The cattle were 36,000, and from which the Lord's tribute tax was 72,000. The donkeys were 30,500, from which the Lord's tribute tax was 6,100. And the captive people were 16,000, from which the Lord's tribute tax was 32,000. And Moses gave the tribute tax, which was the Lord's offering, to Eleazar the priest, just as the Lord had commanded Moses.
Okay, and Julianne, verses 42 to 54 to finish the chapter, please.
And from the children of Israel's half, which Moses separated from the men who fought, now the half belonging to the congregation was 337,500 sheep, 36,000 cattle, 30,500 donkeys, and 16,000 persons. And from the children of Israel's half, Moses took one of every 50, drawn from man and beast, and gave them to the Levites, who kept charge of the tabernacle of the Lord, as the Lord commanded Moses. Then the officers who were over thousands of the army, the captains of thousands and captains of hundreds, came near to Moses. And they said to Moses, your servants have taken account of the men of war who are under our command, and not a man of us is missing. Therefore we have brought an offering for the Lord, what every man found of ornaments of gold, armlets and bracelets, signet rings, earrings, and necklaces, to make atonement for ourselves before the Lord. So Moses and Eleazar the priest received the gold from them, all the fashioned ornaments. And all the gold of the offering that they offered to the Lord from the captains of thousands and captains of hundreds was 16,750 shekels. The men of war had taken spoil, every man for himself. And Moses and Eleazar the priest received the gold from the captains of thousands and of hundreds, and brought it into the tabernacle of meeting as a memorial for the children of Israel before the Lord.
Okay, thank you. Roy, Numbers 32, verses 1 through 10, and then D, verses 11 through 20, please. Roy? Oh, okay, are you there? It looks like you're unmuted, but I can't hear you. Okay, D.
Hello?
Are you okay?
Can
There
you hear
you
me
are,
now?
Roy. Yes, I can hear
Oh,
you now.
okay. Now the sons of Reuben, the sons of Gad, had an exceedingly large number of livestock. So when they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, that it was indeed a place suitable for livestock, the sons of Gad and the sons of Reuben came and spoke to Moses and to Eleazar the priest, and to the leaders of the congregation, saying, Ataroth, Dibon, Jazer, Nimrah, Heshbon, Eliah, Elile, Sebam, Nebo, and Beon, the land which the Lord conquered before the congregation of Israel, is a land for livestock, and your servants have livestock. They said, if we have found favor in your sight, let this land be given to your servants as a possession. Do not take us across the Jordan. But Moses said to the sons of Gad and to the sons of Reuben, shall your brothers go to war while you yourselves sit here? Now why are you discouraging the sons of Israel from crossing over into the land which the Lord has given them? This is what your fathers did when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to see the land. For when they went up to the valley of Eshcol and saw the land, they discouraged the sons of Israel so that they did not go into the land which the Lord had given them. So the Lord's anger burned in that day, and he swore, saying, none of the men is at it, or
Okay,
Surely,
D.
surely none of the men who came up out of Egypt from 20 years old and upward shall see the land that I swore to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, because they have not wholly followed me. None except Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, and Joshua, the son of Nun, for they have wholly followed Yahweh. And Yahweh's anger was kindled against Israel, and he made them wander in the wilderness 40 years, until all the generation that had done evil in the sight of Yahweh was gone. And behold, you have risen in your father's place, a brood of sinful men, to increase still more the fierce anger of Yahweh against Israel. For if you turn away from following him, he will again abandon them in the wilderness, and you will destroy all this people. Then they came near to him and said, we will build sheepfolds here for our livestock and cities for our little ones. But we will take up arms, ready to go before the people of Israel, until we've brought them to their place. And our little ones shall live in the fortified cities because of the inhabitants of the land. We will not return to our homes until each of the people of Israel has gained his inheritance. For we will not inherit with them on the other side of the Jordan and beyond, because our inheritance has come to us on this side of the Jordan to the east. So Moses said to him, if you will do this, if you will take up arms to go before Yahweh for the war. Verse 21.
And every one of your armed men will pass over the Jordan before Yahweh until he has driven out his enemies from before him, and the land is subdued before Yahweh. Then afterward you shall return and be clear of obligation to Yahweh and to Israel. Then this land shall be your possession before Yahweh. But if you do not do so, behold, you have sinned against Yahweh, and be sure your sin will find you out. Build cities for your little ones and folds for your sheep, and do that which is proceeded out of your mouth. The children of Gad and the children of Reuben spoke to Moses, saying, Your servants will do as my Lord commands. Our little ones, our wives, our flocks, and our livestock will be there in the cities of Gilead. But your servants will pass over, every man who is armed for war, before Yahweh to do battle, as my Lord says. So Moses commanded concerning them to Eleazar the priest, and to Joshua the son of Nun, and to the heads of the fathers' households of the tribes of the children of Israel. Moses said to them, If the children of Gad and the children of Reuben will pass with you over the Jordan, every man who is armed to battle before Yahweh, and the land is subdued before you, then you will give them the land of Gilead for a possession. But if they will not pass over with you armed, they shall have possessions among you in the land of Canaan. Dawn, Michael is unavailable to read. Would you finish the chapter, please?
Then the children of Gad and the children of Reuben answered, saying, As Yahweh has said to your servants, so we will do. We will cross over armed before Yahweh into the land of Canaan, but the possession of our inheritance shall remain with us on this side of the Jordan. So Moses gave to the children of Gad, to the children of Reuben, to the half tribe of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, the kingdom of Sihon, king of the Amorites, and the kingdom of Og, king of Bashan, the land with its cities within the borders, the cities of the surrounding country. And the children of Gad built Dibon and Atarot and Aroer, Atrot and Shophon and Jazer and Jogbehah, Beit Nimrah, Beit Haran, fortified cities and folds for sheep. And the children of Reuben built Heshbon and Elealeh and Kirjathaim, Nebo and Baal Meon, their names being changed, and Shebma, and they gave other names to the cities which they built. And the children of Machir, the son of Manasseh, went to Gilead and took it, and dispossessed the Amorites who were in it. So Moses gave Gilead to Machir and the son of Manasseh, and he dwelt in it. Also Jair, the son of Manasseh, went and took its small towns, and called them Havot Jair. Then Nobah went and took Kenat and its villages, and he called it Nobah, after his own name.
Thank you. John, chapter 33, at verses 1 through 10, please.
Here are the stages in the journey of the Israelites when they came out of Egypt by divisions under the leadership of Moses and Aaron. At the Lord's command, Moses recorded the stages in their journey. This is their journey by stages. The Israelites set out from Ramses on the 15th day of the first month, the day after the Passover. They marched out defiantly in full view of all the Egyptians, who were burying all their firstborn, whom the Lord had struck down among them. For the Lord had brought judgment on their gods. The Israelites left Ramses and camped at Sukkot. They left Sukkot and camped at Etham on the edge of the desert. They left Etham, turned back to Pi Hahiroth, to the east of Baal Zephon, and camped near Migdol. They left Pi Hahiroth and passed through the sea into the desert. And when they had traveled for 3 days in the desert of Etham, they camped at Marah. They left Marah and went to Elim, where there were 12 springs and 70 palm trees, and they camped there. They left Elim and camped by the Red Sea.
Thank you. Okay, Debbie, verses 11 through 20, please.
They moved on from the Sea of Suf and camped in the Sin Desert. They moved on from the Sin Desert and camped at Dovka. They moved on from Dovka and camped at Alish. They moved from Alish and camped at Rephidim, where there was no water for the people to drink. They moved on from Rephidim and camped in the Sinai Desert. They moved on from the Sinai Desert and camped at Kiryat Arba. They moved on from Kiryat Arba and camped at Hazeroth. They moved from Hazeroth and camped at Ritma. They moved on from Ritma and camped at Rimon Perez. They moved on from Rimon Perez and camped at Lina.
Okay, thank you. Jimmy, 21 through 30, please.
Thank you very much for the very difficult words you have here ahead of me.
I know.
That's okay. I'll try my best. I'm from 21, right? Correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. They journeyed from Libnah and camped at Rissah. The journey from Rissah and camped at Kelitatat. The journey of Kelitatat and camped at Mount Sephir. The journey from Mount Sephir and camped at Haradat. The journey from Haradat and camped at Makheloth. And the journey from Makheloth and camped at Takath. The journey from Takath and camped at Terah. Very close. And the journey from Terah and camped at Mithkah. And the journey from Mithkah and camped at Hashmonah. And the journey from Hashmonah and camped at Moserah.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
And Julianne, 31 through 40, please.
They departed from Moseroth and camped at Bene Hakan. They moved from Bene Hakan and camped at Hor Haggidgad. They went from Hor Haggidgad and camped at Jothbatha. They moved from Jothbatha and camped at Abrona. They departed from Abrona and camped at Ezon-Geber. They moved from Ezon-Geber and camped in the wilderness of Zin, which is Kadesh. They moved from Kadesh and camped at Mount Hor on the boundary of the land of Edom. Then Aaron the priest went up to Mount Hor at the command of the Lord, and died there in the 14th year after the children of Israel had come out of the land of Egypt, on the first day of the 5th month. Aaron was 123 years old when he died on Mount Hor. Now the king of Arad, the Canaanite, who dwelt in the south in the land of Canaan, heard of the coming of the children of Israel.
Thank you. Roy, verses 41 through 50, please.
He's coming.
Where's
Hello.
he coming? Hello?
Sorry about that. I got up. Where are we?
Numbers 33, verses 41 through, why don't you just finish it to Numbers 33:56?
Oh, okay. Thanks. Sorry about that. Then they journeyed from Mount Hor and camped at Zalmonah. They journeyed from Zalmonah and camped at Punon. They journeyed from Punon and camped at Uboth. They journeyed from Oboth and camped at Abarim, at the border of Moab. They journeyed from Ayim and camped at Dibon-Gad. They journeyed from Dibon-Gad and camped at Almon Diblathaim. They journeyed from Almon Diblathaim and camped in the mountains of Abarim before Nebo. They journeyed from the mountains of Abarim and camped in the plains of Moab by the Jordan opposite Jericho. They camped by the Jordan from Beth Jeshimoth as far as Abel Shittim in the plains of Moab. Then the Lord spoke to Moses in the plains of Moab by the Jordan opposite Jericho, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel and say to them, When you cross over the Jordan into the land of Canaan, then you shall drive out all the inhabitants of the land from before you, and destroy all their figured stones, and destroy all their molten images, and demolish all their high places. And you shall take possession of the land and live in it. For I have given the land to you to possess it. You shall inherit the land by lot according to your families. To the larger you shall give more inheritance, and to the smaller you shall give less inheritance. Wherever the lot falls to anyone, that shall be his. You shall inherit according to the tribes of your fathers. But if you do not drive out the inhabitants of the land from before you, then it shall come about that those whom you let remain of them will become as pricks in your eyes and as thorns in your sides, and they will trouble you in the land in which you live. And as I plan to do to them, so I will do to you.
Thank you. D, chapter 34, verses 1 through 10, please. D.
Hello. Okay.
Hello.
All right. 34, 1 through 10. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Command the people of Israel and say to them, When you enter the land of Canaan, this is the land that shall fall to you for an inheritance, the land of Canaan as defined by its borders. Your south side shall be from the wilderness of Zin alongside Edom, and your southern border shall run from the end of the Salt Sea on the east. And your border shall turn south of the ascent of Akrabim and cross to Zin, and its limit shall be south of Kadesh Barnea. Then it shall go on to Hazar-adah and pass along to Asmon. And the border shall turn from Asmon to the brook of Egypt, and its limit shall be at the sea. For the western border you shall have the great sea and its coast. This shall be your western border. This shall be your northern border. From the great sea, you shall draw a line to Mount Hor. From Mount Hor, you shall draw a line to Leboth Habath. And the limit of the border shall be at Zedad. Then the border shall extend to Ziphron, and its limit shall be at Hazar Anan. This shall be your northern border. You shall draw a line for your eastern border from Hazar Anan to Shepham. Verse
Thank
11.
you. The border shall go down from Shepham to Riblah on the east side of Ain. The border shall go down and shall reach to the side of the Sea of Kinneret eastward. The border shall go down to the Jordan and end at the Salt Sea. This shall be your land according to its borders around it. Moses commanded the children of Israel, saying, This is the land which you shall inherit by lot, which Yahweh has commanded to give to the 9 tribes and to the half-tribe, for the tribe of the children of Reuben according to their fathers' houses, the tribe of the children of Gad according to their fathers' houses, and the half-tribe of Manasseh have received their inheritance. The 2 tribes and the half-tribe have received their inheritance beyond the Jordan at Jericho eastward toward the sunrise. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, These are the names of the men who shall divide the land to you for inheritance: Eleazar the priest and Joshua the son of Nun. You shall take one prince of every tribe to divide the land for inheritance. These are the names of the men: of the tribe of Judah, Caleb the son of Jephunneh; of the tribe of the children of Simeon, Shemuel the son of Ammihud; of the tribe of Benjamin, Eladad the son of Kislon; of the tribe of the children of Dan, a prince, Buki the son of Jogli; of the children of Joseph; of the tribe of the children of Manasseh, a prince, Haniel the son of Ephod; of the tribe of the children of Ephraim, a prince, Kemuel the son of Shiftan; of the tribe of the children of Zebulun, a prince, Elizaphan the son of Parnak; of the tribe of the children of Issachar, a prince, Paltiel the son of Azan; of the tribe of the children of Asher, a prince, Ahihud the son of Shalomi; of the tribe of the children of Naphtali, a prince, Pedahel the son of Ammihud. These are they whom Yahweh commanded to divide the inheritance to the children of Israel in the land of Canaan. Okay, so Dawn chapter 35, verses 1 through 10, please.
And Yahweh spoke to Moses in the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho, saying, Command the children of Israel that they give the Levites cities to dwell in from the inheritance of their possession, and you shall also give the Levites common land around the cities. They shall have the cities to dwell in, and their common land shall be for their cattle, for their herds, and for their animals. The common land of the cities which you will give the Levites shall extend from the wall of the city outward 1,000 cubits all around. And you shall measure outside the city on the east side 2,000 cubits, on the south side 2,000 cubits, on the west side 2,000 cubits, and on the north side 2,000 cubits. The city shall be in the middle. This shall belong to them as common land for the cities. Now among the cities which you will give to the Levites, you shall appoint 6 cities of refuge, to which the manslayer may flee, and to these you shall add 42 cities. So all the cities you will give to the Levites shall be 48. These you shall give with their common land, and the cities which you will give shall be from the possession of the children of Israel. From the larger tribe you shall give many, from the smaller tribe you shall give few. Each shall give some of its cities to the Levites in proportion to the inheritance that each receives. Then Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, When you cross the Jordan into the land of Canaan.
John, verses 11 through 20, please.
Select some towns to be your cities of refuge, to which a person who has killed someone accidentally may flee. They will be places of refuge from the avenger, so that anyone accused of murder may not die before they stand trial before the assembly. These 6 towns you give will be your cities of refuge. Give 3 on this side of the Jordan and 3 in Canaan as cities of refuge. These 6 towns will be a place of refuge for Israelites and for foreigners residing among them, so that anyone who has killed another accidentally can flee there. If anyone strikes someone a fatal blow with an iron object, that person is a murderer. The murderer is to be put to death. Or if anyone is holding a stone and strikes someone a fatal blow with it, that person is a murderer. The murderer is to be put to death. Or if anyone is holding a wooden object and strikes someone a fatal blow with it, that person is a murderer. The murderer is to be put to death. The avenger of blood shall put the murderer to death. When the avenger comes upon the avenger shall put the murderer to death. If anyone with malice, aforethought, shoves another or throws something at them intentionally so that they die.
Debbie, verses 21 through 34, please, to finish the chapter.
Or out of hostility strikes him with his hand, so that he dies. Then the one who struck him must be put to death. He is a murderer. And the next of kind avenger is to put the murderer to death upon meeting him. But suppose he shoots him suddenly, but without hostility, or he throws something at him, so he throws him unintentionally, or without seeing him, being his enemy, or seeking to harm him, he throws a stone big enough to cause death, and the person dies. Then the community is to judge between the one who struck him and the next of kind in accordance with these rules. And the community is to save the killer from the next in kind avenger. The community is to return him to the city of refuge to which he fled, and he is to live there until the Kohen Hafador, who was anointed with the holy oil, dies. But when the killer ever goes behind the limits of the city of refuge, he fled to, and the next of kind avenge finds him outside the limits of the city of refuge and kills the killer. He will not be guilty of the man's blood, because he must stay in the city of refuge until the death of the Kohen Hafador. But after the death of the Kohen Hafador, the killer may return to the land he owns. These things shall constitute your standard for judgment through all your generations, wherever you live. If you kill someone, the murderer is to be put to death upon the testimony of witnesses. But the testimony of only one witness will not sufficient to cause the person to put to death. Also, you are not to accept the ransom in lieu of the life of a murderer condemned to death. Rather, he must be put to death. Likewise, you are not to accept for someone who has fled to his city of refuge a ransom that would allow him to return to his land before the death of the Kohen. In this way, you will not defile the land in which you are living, for blood defiles the land, and in this land no atonement can be made for the blood shed in it except the blood of him who shed it. No, you are not to defile the land in which you live, and in which I live, for I, Jehovah, live among the people of Israel.
Thank you. Okay, Jimmy, chapter 36, verses 1 through 10. Actually, just read the whole chapter because it's only 13 verses.
Sure, no problem. Thanks. Now the heads of the fathers' households of the family of the sons of Gilead, the son of Massei, the son of Manasseh, of the families of the sons of Joseph, came forward to the and spoke before Moses and before the leaders, the heads of the fathers' households of the sons of Israel. And they said, the Lord commanded my Lord to give the land by lot to the sons of Israel as an inheritance. And my Lord was commanded by the Lord to give the inheritance of my brother Zelophehad to his daughters. But if they marry one of the sons of other tribes of the sons of Israel, the inheritance will be withdrawn from the inheritance of fathers and be added to the inheritance of the son, and be added to the inheritance of the tribe to which they belong. So it will be withdrawn from our allotted inheritance. And when the Jubilee of the sons of Israel takes place, then the inheritance will be added to the inheritance of the tribe to which they belong. So the inheritance will be withdrawn from the inheritance of the tribe to our fathers. Then Moses commanded the sons of Israel, in accordance with the word of the Lord, saying, the tribe of the sons of Joseph is right in its statements. This is what the Lord had commanded, as regarded the sons of Zelophehad, saying, let them marry whomever they wish. Only they must marry within the family of the tribe of their fathers. Sorry, get up and get down there. Okay. So no inheritance of the sons of Israel will be transferred from tribe to tribe, for the sons of Israel shall retain possession of the inheritance of the tribe of the fathers. Sorry. And every daughter to who comes into possession of an inheritance of any tribe of the sons of Israel shall marry one of the family of the tribe of her father, so that the sons of Israel may each possess the inheritance of his fathers. So no inheritance will be transferred from one tribe to another, for the tribes of the sons of Israel shall also retain possession of its own inheritance. Just as the Lord had commanded Moses, so the daughters of Zelophehad did. Sorry. Maklah, Tisra, Hoglah, Milcah, and Noah, the sons of Zelophehad, married their uncle's sons. They married those from the families of the sons of Manasseh, the sons of Joseph, and the inheritance retained with the tribe of the family of their father. Sorry, last verse. These are the commandments of the ordinances which the Lord commanded the sons of Israel through Moses, in the plains of Moab, by the Jordan, opposite Jericho.
Okay, thank you. Roy and Dee, you'll read next, and we're going to go to Jeremiah chapter 2. And Roy, would you read from verse 4 to 20, and then D from 20:37, please?
Okay. I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Jeremiah 2?
Jeremiah 2, starting at verse 4 to
Yeah.
15.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Hear the word of the Lord,
And
O
I'm
house
sorry,
of
let me interrupt you, Roy. Let me interrupt you. I said 4 to 15. I mean 4 to 20. I'm giving you 6 extra verses.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Thank you. Hear the word of the Lord, O house of Jacob, and all the families of the house of Israel. Thus says the Lord, what injustice did your fathers find in me, that they went far from me and walked after emptiness and became empty? They did not say, where is the Lord who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, who led us through the wilderness, through a land of deserts and of pits, through a land of drought and of deep darkness, through a land that no one crossed and where no man dwelt. I brought you into the fruitful land to eat its fruit and its good things. But you came and defiled my land, and my inheritance you made an abomination. The priest did not say, where is the Lord? And those who handled the law did not know me. The rulers also transgressed against me. And the prophets prophesied by Baal and walked after things that did not profit. Therefore I will yet contend with you, declares the Lord, and with your sons I will contend. For cross to the coastlands of Kiddim and see, and send to Kedar and observe closely and see if there has been such a thing as this. Has a nation changed gods when they were not gods? But my people have changed their glory for that which does not profit. Be appalled, O heavens, at this, and shudder. Be very desolate, declares the Lord. For my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, to hew for themselves cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water. Is Israel a slave, or is he a homeborn servant? Why has he become a prey? The young lions have roared at him. They have roared loudly, and they have made his land a waste. His cities have been destroyed without inhabitant. Also, the men of Memphis and Tahpanhes have shaved the crown of your head. Have you not done this to yourself by your forsaking the Lord your God when he led you in the way? But now, what are you doing on the road to Egypt to drink the waters of the Nile? Or what are you doing on the road to Assyria to drink the waters of the Euphrates? Your own wickedness will correct you, and your apostasies will reprove you. Know therefore and see that it is evil and bitter for you to forsake the Lord your God, and the dread of me is not in you, declares the Lord God of hosts. For long ago I broke your yoke and tore off your bonds, but you said, I will not serve. For on every high hill and under every green tree you have lain down as a harlot.
Okay, thank you. D, 21 through 37 to finish the chapter, please.
Yet I planted you a choice vine, holy of pure seed. How then have you turned degenerate and become a wild vine? Though you wash yourself with lye and you use much soap, the stain of your guilt is still before me, declares Yahweh Elohim. How can you say, I am not unclean? How I have not gone after the Baals? Look at your way in the valley. Know what you have done. A restless young camel running here and there, a wild donkey used to the wilderness in her heat, sniffing the wind. Who can restrain her lust? None who seek her need weary themselves. In her month they will find her. Keep your feet from going unshod and your throat from thirst. But you said, it is hopeless, for I have loved foreigners, and after them I will go. As a thief is shamed when caught, so the house of Israel shall be shamed. They, their kings, their officials, their priests, and their prophets, who say to a tree, you are my father, and to a stone, you gave birth to me. For they have turned their back to me and not their face. But in the time of their trouble, they say, arise and save us. But where are your gods that you've made for yourself? Let them arise, if they can save you in your time of trouble. For as many as your cities are your gods, O Judah. Have you not just now called to me, my father? You are the friend of my youth.
Go ahead and finish the chapter.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? I was reading straight out of the FFOZ, and that's what it had. Sorry.
That's okay.
Let me pull that up.
Do you find it?
Okay. So which verse did I end in, Jeremiah 2?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Let me see.
Either 28 or 29, probably.
28 or 29. Okay.
I would
Oh,
start
wow.
with
Well,
Okay.
you said you read 28, so start at 29.
Okay, here we go. Wherefore will you plead with me? You all have transgressed against me, saith Yahweh. In vain have I smitten your children. They received no correction. Your own sword has devoured your prophets like a destroying lion. O generations, see the word of Yahweh. Have I been a wilderness unto Israel, a land of darkness? Wherefore say my people, we are lords, we will come no more unto you. Can a maid forget her ornaments or a bride her attire? Yet my people have forgotten me days without number. Why trimmest thou the way to seek love? Therefore hast thou also taught the wicked ones thy ways. Also in thy skirts is found the blood of the souls of the poor innocents. I have not found it by secret search, but upon all these. Yet thou sayest, because I am innocent, surely his anger shall turn from me. Behold, I will plead with thee. But because thou sayest, I have not sinned, why gaddest thou about so much to change thy way? Thou also shalt be ashamed of Egypt, as thou wast ashamed of Assyria. Yea, thou shalt go forth from him, and thine hands upon thine head. For Yahweh hath rejected thy confidences, and thou shalt not prosper in them.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm going to read Luke 13, 1 through 9, and that will finish our reading for today. Luke 13, 1. Now there were some present at the time when he told him about the Galileans whose blood Pilate had mixed with their sacrifices. Yeshua answered them, Do you think that these Galileans were worse sinners than all the other Galileans because they suffered such things? I tell you, no. But unless you repent, you will all perish in the same way. Or those 18 on whom the tower in Siloam fell and killed them, do you think that they were worse offenders than all the men who dwell in Jerusalem? I tell you, no. But unless you repent, you will all perish in the same way. He spoke this parable. A certain man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and he came seeking fruit on it and found none. He said to the vine dresser, Behold, these 3 years I have come looking for fruit on this fig tree and found none. Cut it down. Why does it waste the soil? He answered, Lord, leave it alone this year also until I dig around it and fertilize it. If it bears fruit, fine, but if not, after that, you can cut it down. Okay, that ends our Torah reading, and we're now going to have a short teaching that Yahweh laid on my heart to give. It's just a short one, so I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share. Where is Microsoft Word? Okay, I'm going to share that. And before we get going, I am going to hit the record button up here. Let me hit this record button, and before we get started, I'll say a prayer. Father, thank you for this short message, but it's a profound one, and I thank you that you have shown me about vows, oaths, and promises, because I had many questions about that over the years. And Father, you have clarified those things for me, and I pray that only your words will come forth, and that none of mine, no opinion of mine, no human insight, but only what you give. I pray that in Yeshua's name. Amen. Well, as you can see, I have this titled Vows, Oaths, and Promises. It starts at Numbers 30, verse 1. Moses spoke to the heads of the tribes of the children of Israel, saying, "This is the thing which Yahweh has commanded. When a man vows a vow to Yahweh, or swears an oath to bind his soul with a bond, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceeds out of his mouth." So I want to define for you what is the difference between a vow and an oath. Well, vows are made between man and God or between God and man. Oaths are between two or more people, such as the two people of the wedding ceremony. And weddings involve both vows and oaths. The couple together as one unity vows to conduct their marriage as Yahweh specifies, and they make oaths of loyalty, of oneness to each other in every possible condition that can arise in life. The oaths of a group of individuals has, as an example, immigrants swearing loyalty to their new chosen nation, or in a group of people entering military service. I have experience with that one. That's why it came to my mind. But hopefully Yahweh won't see it as just my own opinion, because that is part of what happens. And then we have also in a courtroom, those are examples of group oaths, okay? And so the thing to understand is that oaths can also be spoken without witnesses. We like to have witnesses when oaths are being spoken, but oaths don't necessarily have to be spoken with witnesses. And don't worry if you speak an oath in secret to someone and then you think that no one will know, like, young couples who say, "Oh, we won't tell anybody. We'll just make these oaths and vows to each other." Just know this: Yahweh hears everything. The moment you open your mouth, there is a record of your words. So, for instance, when a man and woman do secret vows and oaths of marriage with no one around, and I have known many couples who have done that over the years, they just speak these things to each other and they think no one knows, and they don't want to make the declaration of we're husband and wife for some reason. And so they think no one is going to really know. But when they start living together, someone's going to ask about their vows and oaths, right? Know this: what we speak will be discovered. Now, people don't like it when others hold their words against them, but people have the right to hold our words against us. We should not speak. We should learn not to speak unless we intend to fulfill what we speak. But if others hold our words against us, the unfulfilled words, they have the right to do that. It is also our right to repent for our unfulfilled words, and their requirement is then to forgive us and not hold those words against us any longer. So, we have to be careful. Yeshua said, "Let your yes be yes and your no be no," in Matthew 5:37. Both positive and negative assertions carry the weight of responsibility for the person to fulfill it. Now, promises are a declaration that you will do something or that you will cause a particular situation to happen. Now, promises are not part of the formality of human vows and oaths. but they still carry weight. And in fact, promises carry greater weight. And I'm going to explain this to you. Here is how vows and oaths are legally different than promises before Yahweh. Vows and oaths are associated with significant life events at which we make commitments. You know, vows and oaths have expiration dates. The marriage vows and the oaths end with the death of one of the parties. Nazirite vows end when either the Nazirite or Yahweh says it will end. Contracts, which is a vow or oath written on paper, which has only come about in modern times because we have paper, and somehow in our perverted minds we think that putting it on paper makes it stronger than our personal word. Those things come with expiration dates. But promises have no expiration date. Covenants, they don't have expiration dates either, but that's a whole other topic. We're talking now about promises. Promises must be fulfilled. Promises can be upheld in court, even without a contract. If you make a promise to do something by such and such a date, or to cause something to come to pass, and that date has passed without the promise being fulfilled, the promise still stands, but it stands unfulfilled, and it is standing against you, and is then subject to being upheld in court. So be careful about making promises. You see, we've got a problem in our culture. People often use the word promise when they're actually speaking an oath to us. And the other thing is, they also use the word promise frivolously. Oh yeah, I promise I'll come to dinner. Then they don't show up, right? Either way, we use the word promise altogether too lightly, and it has become perverted to the point where we do not believe in promises anymore because so many people have broken their promises to us, the big promises and the little promises. Well, what this does is it affects how we view the promises of Yahweh to his people. We have become skeptical and cynical about his promises because of the promises broken by people. We fail to understand that our word represents our character, both to Yahweh and to people. But because the word promise has been bandied about so lightly, and has become so perverted, and people know promises are broken all the time, they have learned to not trust Yahweh's promises. However, let me tell you, you can take Yahweh's promises to the bank. May we, who believe in Yahweh, not cause people to become like that toward Yahweh's promises by breaking promises we make. Now, there are differences under which men make vows or promises to Yahweh or to others, and how women do this. And this is one of the few ways that Yahweh treats the genders differently. Numbers 30, verse 3. Also, when a woman vows a vow to Yahweh and binds herself by a bond, being in her father's house in her youth, and perhaps the first kind of vow we will think of is the Nazirite vow, which is a vow to serve Yahweh in his tabernacle, and which can also involve abstinence. Serving in the tabernacle is open to both men and women. Unlike what a lot of church leaders say, women are not to serve in certain capacities. Yahweh never said that. Serving in the tabernacle or in the temple or in Yahweh's service is open to men and women. But the father or husband of a woman can approve or nullify her vow. So now there are two problems that arise with a daughter making such a vow. First, if her service will involve her abstinence, and it doesn't always involve abstinence, but it often does. I mean, there will be no grandchildren for her father. And this might be an issue in a small family like Jephthah's, whose daughter was offered to the tabernacle and who mourned the loss of motherhood in Joshua chapter 12 before she went to serve in the tabernacle. You see, so in her case, it did involve abstinence. But in the case of Huldah, the prophetess, she was married when King Josiah sent Hilkiah the priest to her. So, it can be both ways, abstinence or with marriage. Numbers 30, verse 4, and her father hears her vow and her bond with which she has bound her soul, and her father says nothing to her. Then all her vows shall stand, and every bond with which she has bound her soul shall stand. So her vow shall stand until her father approves or disapproves. Now there's another problem with a daughter who wants to serve Yahweh via a vow, and that has to do with the bond. The bond mentioned in verse 3 is the payment, the sacrifice, which is required to implement the vow. Nazirite vows, which are open to both men and women, are begun with a sacrifice, and the daughter does not have the authority to take her father's property for this purpose without his permission. So when you read about the woman making a bond which binds her soul, she's actually giving collateral. And so if she's the daughter, she does not own the father's property. She cannot she would be stealing from her father if she, took that sacrifice to the tabernacle, you see. Numbers 30, verse 5. But if her father forbids her in the day that he hears, none of her vows or of her bonds with which she has bound her soul shall stand. Yahweh will forgive her because her father has forbidden her. So she can't make a payment with things that don't belong to her. And one caveat for daughters is they need to discover whether their daughter's desire to serve Yahweh is actually a call from Yahweh to the daughter or just a whim, which will pass. And he will surely make her life miserable if Yahweh has truly called her, but he refuses to let her serve for selfish reasons, such as the loss of grandchildren and the sacrificial animals. He has the weight of that responsibility, because certainly women, young women, still in their father's homes, are called by Yahweh. So the father has to decide whether his will or the father's will be done. Numbers 30, verse 6. If she has a husband while her vows are on her, or the rash utterance of her lips with which she has bound her soul, and her husband hears it and says nothing to her in the day that he hears it, then her vows shall stand, and her bonds with which she has bound her soul shall stand. What are rash utterances? The word rash in English is the Hebrew word safa. It's Strong's H8193. And it is hasty speech that has not taken the consequences into account. A wife who speaks hastily binds her husband as well as herself. And if her vow is to serve in the tabernacle, the reason for the husband's required approval is because her service to Yahweh will take precedence over her wifely duties. You know, Deborah, the judge, comes to mind because she was married, yet she was a judge. She served Yahweh, but her sitting in the gates took precedence over her being in the house, cooking and cleaning and taking care of children. You see? So if the oath is to fulfill another condition involving other people, like a business deal or something like that, perhaps she has not counted the cost and consequences for her husband and her household, and she's just spoken without careful consideration of the burden that she might be putting on her husband and her household. You know, just as Yahweh's people, Israelites, do not have the authority to bind him in a deal, a wife does not have the authority to bind her husband to a deal or to a situation. Now, Yahweh's people have bound him, and the best example of this is when the Israelites made covenant with the Gibeonites in the time of Joshua. Their Rash, utterance that they would make a covenant with the Gibeonites bound them and Yahweh with the Gibeonites, excuse me. So to be rash means the situation was not carefully considered and prayed about, wasn't investigated. Joshua didn't make any investigation, and the elders didn't either. And they didn't have the authority to make a covenant, but such things can be done without the authority to do it. And daughters and wives sometimes usurp the authority. And once done, that's it. Everyone is stuck. Yahweh heard Joshua's and the elders' utterance, and he did not stop it. He did not annul it. He did not annul his wife's rash utterances. Rather, and we studied this when we were looking at the life of Joshua and how they conquered Canaan, Yahweh left some of the nations to be thorns in their side, because when they came across, the first thing that they did was they failed. The whole nation of Israel failed at Ai, although it was Achan and his family. Israel was responsible for it. Oh boy, we don't want to hear that, do we? We don't want to hear that all of Israel suffers because of the sins of one person. You know, I'm going to go off the transcript here. When I was in the Army, if you had one soldier and she was not doing what she was supposed to do, we all had to do push-ups, or we all had to do a 3-mile run because of that one person. And, you know, civilians, well, that's not fair. Well, it's not about fairness. It's about justice and learning how to take responsibility for each other, be accountable to each other, and know that when sin is afoot in Israel, all of us have the responsibility to deal with that. So he allowed Israel to suffer the results of their covenant with the Gibeonites. And you know, sometimes experiencing the consequences of poor decisions and poor actions is more valuable than getting it corrected from the beginning. And we're going to find as we continue our studies, God willing, we'll get to the time of David, that during David's time, they are still paying a heavy price for that covenant with the Gibeonites. So now here are some scriptures about keeping our word. Deuteronomy 23, starting at verse 21. When you vow a vow to Yahweh your God, you shall not be slack to pay it. For Yahweh your God will surely require it of you, and it would be sin in you. But if you refrain from making a vow, it shall be no sin in you. You shall observe and do that which has gone out of your lips. Whatever you have vowed to Yahweh your God as a free will offering, which you have promised with your mouth, you must do so. Psalm 15:1. Yahweh, who shall dwell in your sanctuary? Who shall live on your holy hill? Well, the relevant question to this teaching is in Psalm 15, verse 4, where the scripture says, He who keeps an oath, even when it hurts, and doesn't change. So, in other words, whatever, I've said it, it's going to hurt me. And you know what? Just do it. Just do it. I'm not going to testify about that because I'm not going to draw attention to myself. We've all been in that situation where, oh, I've said and now I have to do. And that's just the end of it. Ecclesiastes 5:2 and verse 5. Don't be rash with your mouth, and don't let your heart be hasty to utter anything before God. For God is in heaven, and you on earth. Therefore, let your words be few. It is better that you should not vow than that you should vow and not pay. Matthew 5:33 to 37. Again, you have heard that it was said to the ancient ones, You shall not make false vows, but shall perform to the Lord your vows. But I tell you, don't swear at all, neither by heaven, for it is the throne of God, nor by the earth, for it is the footstool of his feet, nor by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. Neither shall you swear by your head, for you can't make one white hair or a black hair. But let your yes be yes, and your no be no. Whatever is more than these is of the evil one. And so in the web, it says about the false vows. That is the translation of the web version. Swearing on one's own head is useless because doing so means the recipient of the oath can take your head from your body. See, if you make your head that which binds your oath, you're telling them that if you don't fulfill the oath, they have the right to behead you. See, people don't know that, Here in Jordan, people will say something and then they'll put their hand on their head, telling you that's the sign that, my vow, my oath is on my head. But people don't understand that if they fail in an oath like that, binding the oath with their own head, they can lose their head. But as Yeshua said, you can't change the color of your hair, and no, Clairol doesn't work for that. Now, we're going to go back and talk about the false vow in the web version. What is a false vow that Yeshua spoke of in Matthew 5:33? Well, one of the cross references to this verse is Exodus 20, verse 7. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. And then Psalm 141:3 says, Set a guard over your mouth, over my mouth, Lord. I'm sorry. Set a guard over my mouth, Lord. Keep watch over the door of my lips. So one more point before I close my comment. We have all broken our word at some time in our lives, and even if we can't remember when we have done that, it is good to ask the Father to help us remember and or for him to simply forgive us for those times, because breaking our word makes us liars. Revelation 21:8 says, But for the cowardly, unbelieving, sinners, abominable, murderers, sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars, their part is in the lake that burns with fire and sulfur, which is the second death. Now, here in Jordan, almost always the people say God willing when promising to do something. And I have found that this has become a way of them saying, I'm telling you what you want to hear, but my intention is not to do so, not to do what is coming out of my mouth, but I am not really lying to you because I said God willing. We should learn to say yes and no. Say yes only when you know you can fulfill your word. And how will you know that? Careful and prayerful consideration. And say no when there is a question in your mind as to whether you can fulfill what you say, or when you absolutely know you cannot fulfill that kind of promise or oath. Matthew 21, starting at verse 28, says, But what do you think? A man had 2 sons, and he came to the first and said, Son, go work today in my vineyard. And the son said, I will not. But afterward he changed his mind and went. And then the man came to the second son and said the same thing. And he answered, I'm going, sir. But he didn't go. Which one of the 2 did the will of his father? And they said to him, The first. Yeshua said to them, Most certainly, I tell you that the tax collectors and the prostitutes are entering into God's kingdom before you. Why was that? Because they were saying, Yes, I will, and then they were not doing. You know, we're to be doers of the word, right? Our word is way more important than we understand. The power of life and death is with our tongue in Proverbs 18:21. And if we are habitual oath and promise breakers, it is our life and our death that is at stake coming from our tongues. You know, we always seem to want to direct that like my tongue can cause you life and death. No, that's only part of it. The other part is it's going to cause my life and death. Vows, oaths, and promises made are just the beginning of the power of our tongues. Let's be careful with it. And that ends the teaching. And so with that, I'm going to come back to the room and see if there are any comments or questions regarding the teaching, and then we can also talk about the Torah portion as well. Okay, Dawn, I'm sorry I didn't see your hand. I was turning some things off, some buttons.
Oh, that's okay. So, it's interesting that you did have that message because that's what stood out in the Torah portion to me too. And so that was a very good analysis, I think, of vows and oaths. And I loved your definition in defining the difference between the two. That was really good and informative. And what what specifically stood out to me was verse 15 of chapter 30. But if he does make them void, if the husband does make them void after he has heard them, then he shall bear her guilt. So even if a woman makes a vow and the husband voids it, then the voiding of, there's still guilt on the voiding of the vow. And so something still has to be paid for that guilt. So the husband has to pay the guilt of the wife if he voids her vow. So even if it's a wife that makes a vow, it's still important, and somebody's going to have to bear the guilt for breaking it. So that
Yes.
made me think of First Peter. Let me get to this real quick. I'm sorry. First Peter chapter 2, starting in verse 21. For this you were called, because Messiah also suffered for us, leaving us an example that you should follow his steps, who committed no sin, nor was deceit found in his mouth, who, when he was reviled, did not revile in return, when he suffered, he did not threaten, but committed himself to him who judges righteously, who himself bore our sins, or could we say, bore our guilt. He committed no sin, but he bore our guilt, might live for righteousness, that we, having died to sins, might live for righteousness, by whose stripes you were healed. So I think that is also a reference to him as our bridegroom. He bore our guilt for all of our sins, including, vows that we have made, or oaths that we have made, that we have broken throughout history, all of his people. He came and bore that guilt because he annulled some of the oaths and promises and vows that we have made throughout history. And I'm going to go over a couple scriptures here in the Old Testament in just a second to prove the point. But then also, as you were kind of speaking about saying Yah willing, or the Lord willing, that one also had come to mind before you even said that. But James 4:13, come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a city, spend a year there, buy and sell and make a profit, whereas you do not know what will happen tomorrow. So that's a form of an oath, or a form of a promise, or a form of a vow, something like that. I don't know which one it would be, but if you say, oh, I'm going to go do this tomorrow, well, you spoke something. Well, what if you're not able to make that happen? You shouldn't have said that. So I actually think that it is a good thing with reference to what you plan to do tomorrow, to say Yah willing, because it says, whereas you do not know what will happen tomorrow, for what is your life? It is even a vapor that appears for a little time, then vanishes away. And James himself says, instead, you should say, if Yahweh wills, we will live and do this or that. And so, because I think he's pointing out that this is an oath. If you say, I'm going to go on vacation next year to Israel, well, that's kind of an oath. But if you say, if he allows me to, if he blesses me to be able to, if he wills it, if he makes a way, then I will do this. And so I think that's a good thing to say with regard to what you plan to do in the future. But then back to let's see, go to, with regard to him nullifying our vows, Yeshua came and bore our guilt for nullifying our vows. Isaiah 7:7 says, thus saith Yahweh Elohim, it shall not stand, neither shall it come to pass. And he's talking about, let's see, he's talking about, because Syria, Ephraim, and the son of Ramallah have taken evil counsel against you, saying, let us go up against Judah and vex it, and let us make a breach therein. And so he made their vows not stand. He says, it shall not stand, neither shall it come to pass. Then Isaiah 8:10 says, starting in 9, associate yourselves, O you people, ye shall have broken in pieces, and give ear, all of ye countries, gird yourselves, and ye shall be broken in pieces. Gird yourselves, and ye shall be broken in pieces. Take counsel together, and it shall come to nothing. Speak the word, and it shall not stand, for Elohim is with us. And so not only can he, break the vows and that his people say and bear their guilt, but he can make the vows of his people's enemies not stand, which is what a good husband would do, of course. But he came to save all the nations as well. And so those people that abide in those countries that said they were going to come against his people, because there are people in the nations that have come against his people, that are his people, because we're scattered throughout the nations. So he nullifies that vow on behalf of his people in those nations. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but he bore our guilt, because even though, you know, if we're in a country like the United States and we participate in the vote of our quote unquote representatives, and then our representatives say it's okay to murder babies, our representatives, quote unquote, say it's okay to invade another nation, you know, and they do these things on our behalf, then we are still guilty of those vows too, aren't we, by extension? And so when he nullifies the evil plans of a nation and says it shall not stand, I think he's bearing our guilt on the cross too. And let's see, I think the very last one is let's see, Isaiah 28:17, or starting 16. Therefore, thus says Yahweh Elohim, behold, I lay in Zion for a foundation stone, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation. He that believes shall not make haste. Judgment also will lay to the line, and righteousness to the plummet, and the hail shall sweep away the refuge of lies, and the waters shall overflow the hiding place, and your covenant with death shall be annulled, and your agreement with hell shall not stand. When the overflowing scourge shall pass through, then you shall be trodden down by it. And so anyway, he is obviously disannulling agreement with death and agreement with hell. And so I think that's a picture of Yahweh also as, you know, the husband, or Yeshua as the husband, annulling, saying that their agreement with hell and death shall not stand. So anyway, I don't know what your thoughts are on all of that, Kimberly, but that's what came to mind when I was, you know, when we were reading the Torah portion.
Well, I'm glad that you were having all those thoughts, and yes, Yahweh does annul vows. I just used that example of Joshua and the Gibeonites, of a husband who does not annul, so that it can be a correction, you know, by experience for the wife, in this case, Israel. But now I want to be clear. I did not say, do not say God willing. I didn't say that. I said that has gotten perverted. And I knew in the States, people would say that, you know, every sentence that came out of their mouth was God willing, God willing. And then they would just say things, and it was God willing, and then it was okay if what they said, you know, that they were going to do didn't happen, because, you know, they said God willing, and apparently, you know, when they changed their mind, so did God. And I see that here in the people here. I I know people who will take social obligations because, you know, here in this country, you know, people will press for your social obligation to them, to come to dinner, to go somewhere with them, to do this or to do that, and that's your social obligation. And no matter how you say no, they continue until you finally say, okay, God willing, and then you don't show up, but then it's okay because you said God willing. That's a perversity of using the God willing. We need to be more careful about that, because God willing are two words that can lead us down the lane of taking Yahweh's name in vain. So that was my point with that. And I guess I didn't make it very clear, but that was the point. Okay, Debbie and then Dawn.
I don't know if it's the same wording, but this one thing, what it's really what I also ask a lot of questions, but slowly it gets to me that we also say, if God will, I must, from Afrikaans to English, I must translate it now, right? If it would, so we also say if it's His will. I don't know if it's the
Yes.
same.
Yes.
Okay, so if it's His will is always that we will be healthy or will do things His way. Isn't
Yes.
it better to say, let His will be done?
Well, I think the two things are basically saying the same thing, and it's the usage of these are, if we use those things to cover over that, we're really not going to do it, but, we don't want to say no, because a lot of people are adverse to the word no. They don't want to say no. And so they'll say God willing, thinking that that covers it all up. But I think uh, however people phrase it, it's all in the end is the same thing.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you look to the, to His prayer, it says there that if let His will be done. It's
Well,
not that we will say,
in the prayer, yeah, we that's a different use of that phrase.
okay.
You said you had another question, Debbie.
No, it wasn't another question. It was just that the way how we put things and what He says, if it's let His will be done, not my
Yes.
will, but His will. So we mustn't just say, to put people off or just, to put it as a phrase. He's, if it's His willing. Because there is a difference between if it's His willing or let His will be done. We just say it so easily, if it's His will. And His will is for us to live straight and be healthy and so on.
Okay. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What is the difference between His will and His will be done, except that one is 2 words and the other is 4 words? Because you've made that distinction, and I don't see a distinction between them, but it may be that I'm not seeing it. So explain what is the difference between His will and His will be done.
I think it's just that we will say if it's His will, if the word, I think it's more at if it's His will. And
So you're saying it's if it's His will, it's conditional, and when we say His will be done, it's not conditional. That's that we want His will. I get it. Yeah, I see the
yeah.
distinction now.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for clarifying that. I learned something. I got a different insight. That's very good. Okay, Dawn.
I was just going to say that was a really good point about saying, yeah, willing, willy-nilly. Of course, yeah, because basically you're still saying, I mean, it's okay to say for sure if you really mean it, I've got to go seek His will. I'm going to do my best to do it, but if it's not His will, then I can't do it. Just like Balaam said, I can't speak anything that He won't let me speak. So if you're saying it in that way, then it's a good thing. But if you're saying it willy-nilly just to, get the burden off your back of saying no, then I totally get your point that yeah, is bordering on making His name come to nothing. You're just using Him as a scapegoat. And so that's definitely a bad thing. So I agree with that. And then Joshua's rash utterances. Yes, sometimes our husbands, if he lets what we say stand, then he bears the consequences of that as well. He's bound by it too, because if he lets our vow stand, us being married to him, then he's bound by it, just like Yah did let Joshua's rash utterance stand. And so then Yahweh was bound by that utterance as well, because he chose to let that stand. And so the same way as you explained with our husbands. And so that is what Yeshua came for. I mean, if you read throughout the whole New Testament, he came to annul our wicked vows and take the consequences for those. But then he also is coming to judge and, you know, all those that are not, that go against him and his kingdom. But yeah, if he lets our vows, if he was to let our vows stand and let things continue on as they are, then he would be bound by what the world does. And so he's not going to let the evil stuff stand. But as like you said, he let Joshua's rash utterances stand, then he will stand by those things that he let stand. Anyway, so that
Yeah,
was a really good explanation that you gave.
you know, in the cultures of all the earth, I have discovered, and I've been to the US, I was born there, and I've only been to Jordan and Israel, but I've met people from all over the world. Everyone is afraid to say no, because there's a cultural thing about saying no that is offensive to the person who is being told no. And how dare we offend that person? We have to learn to just say no sometimes. I'm not coming to dinner. I've got a prior obligation. I can't work around that obligation to come to your house, so the answer is no. And then, in some cultures, the person who has invited you will be offended. They'll view it as an offense. Well, Yeshua said it's yes and it's no. And none of us really like that word no, because it shuts down our desires, but it's a necessary word. And we have to learn to say it and not, it's with some people, the word no is just going to offend them no matter what you do. But we can learn to say it without being offensive, even though they take it as an offense. Does that make sense? Dawn?
Yes, yes. And I have a really good example that I'm sure everybody on here, at least especially in the United States, will identify with. And then I have another one too, but so it's really funny. But you go to the store, you buy something, and you've got 2 cents left for change. Would you like to round that up for such and such a charity? I don't know if they do that over there now, but they're trying to get rid of change. And so they'll ask you, and there's people behind you listening. And so there you're pressured into saying yes. And so I am one who will rebel and say, no, thank you. And I'll take my 2 cents back, because it
You and I are
really
too much
annoys
alike
me.
that way.
It really annoys me that they do that. And then we went to Cheyenne Frontier Days this past week, and we were coming out of the rodeo in the evening and heading back to our car, and some really nice guy comes up to us and starts chatting with my husband. He's got ball caps in his hand, and he shoves one in each of our hands, mine, my husband's, and my son's, and he says, gives us all compliments and says, oh, these are great hats. And so we're thinking, oh, it's some rodeo thing that they give away hats to people that came to the rodeo that night, right? And then he says, and so we're doing such and such for such and such, and these are only $25 each, and so there's $75 right there. And I'm like, well, no, I'm thank you, but I don't need this hat. I have hats, but thank you. And I gave it back. So no, thank you. And so did my husband and my son, of course. And, they use that fact that we are embarrassed to say no against us. And like you said, it's a good thing to say no if it's a bad thing they're asking.
Yeah, one of the things that happens here is that there are beggars. And begging is illegal in Jordan, but here in the middle of the country, they don't really do very much about it like they do in Amman or in Aqaba. Well, most of the time, the beggars are children, and they will come and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm so hungry," and they're pointing to their mouths. And I've watched them take money and go buy candy and stuff like that. And so where children are concerned, I thought, well, here's how I'm going to fix that. I tell them no, but I'll buy you food. And then what happened was I bought one food and they took the food and sold the food. And so
Oh, no.
now I just say, no, I do not give money to children. And I also don't give money to people who that's their living. They don't work. By the way, everybody here in Jordan, all the Bedouins and the gypsies and all, and everybody who's in need, there's social welfare here. They can go sign up for a stipend that will feed them, and sometimes it's not enough, and so if you know a family like that, you help them out, right? But this street begging thing, I have learned to say no, because when I first got here, we were constantly giving money. And then I saw the kids that I gave money to with their mom and dad, and the mom and dad had a baby, and they were getting into their white car, and they were apparently going to go somewhere else or go home. So I learned about the word no. And it's becoming easier now for me to say no, because I see how I'm being taken for a ride by the people. And that doesn't just happen here. That's in the US. That's in South Africa. That's in the UK. That's wherever you live, that stuff is going on. And like you said, in the stores, do you want to contribute to this thing? No, I don't, because first of all, I don't know anything about that organization, and they may be doing things that I would disagree with based on scriptural evidence, that they might be breaking the Torah, and I'm not going to contribute to that. So I just take care of the people in my close vicinity that I know have the problems, and they're usually the ones that don't ask, you see. So, I hope I haven't gone too much into that topic. I don't know that that's a necessary topic for us today, but that is one of the things we do have to learn, is how to say no.
And I think that was a very good analogy and a good standard to live by. And I totally agree. That's another reason that I won't just, because a lot of times the 2 cents goes to oh, what's that when people are said that they're going to die, and then these people come into their home and help them die or whatever. I forget what that's called. But a lot of times it goes to things like that, which they could be new age spiritists that are going to people's homes, helping them to cross over the great rainbow or whatever. So I'm not going to support that kind of thing. But
The great
but
rainbow.
but but as far as people on the street, what I've tried to teach our son, we've tried to teach our son, because sometimes we do give, like, even if it's a McDonald's gift certificate or something like that to people on the street, we also try and give them some scripture too. But sometimes we got to listen to our still small voice, and if we feel like he is telling us to give something, then we don't worry about it. We just do it, because I certainly don't want to say no to when he sends an angel and he says, when you did it to the least of these, you did it to me. When you did it not to the least of these, you did it not to me. And he says that he may send angels among us to test us and that kind of thing. So I think, again, as with everything in life, you need to listen to his still small voice and then not question it. You know, if I gave it to that person and they use it wrong, then I was doing what I believe he wanted me to do, and what they do with it, because maybe he's testing them, or maybe he's got something going on with them. Whatever they do with it then is on them and not on me. But then there are sometimes, like I went into a store and they didn't have any help. There was nobody to check you out. And I said, well, goodness, there's people out there on the corner asking for, yeah, we've talked to them and they said, no, they don't need a job because they make more out there. And so, of course, when I went outside, I told the person that was standing there asking for money, I said, you know, they're hiring in there. He goes, yeah. I said, why don't you go apply? So anyways, we have to listen to that still small voice, as you said. And I think that, you know, sometimes he has a reason for us to say yes, and sometimes he has a reason for us to say no.
Yes, exactly. Okay, anybody else have a comment on this before I go on to the next one I want to talk about? Okay. Let's go over to Numbers 31. I want to show y'all something. We have a prototype in Numbers 31 for the 144,000. And now this is the war against the Midianites and all the kings that supported the Midianites, and Balaam, who had told the Midianites how to get the Israelites to curse themselves. And we have this same thing in Revelation, those who teach the doctrine of Balaam. So I want to take you to verse 5, Numbers 31:5. They took out of Israel 1,000 from every tribe, 12,000 armed for war. Now, that's going to be multiplied with the 144,000. You know, every tribe listed there, minus Ephraim and Dan, will have 12,000 times 12,000. Every tribe will have 12,000, and there are 12 tribes is what I'm trying to say. I didn't say it quite right. And that will equal 144,000. So, and here's going to be the result of when the Israelite army is reestablished. And listen, that's one of the big hallmarks for us in the end of days, is the reestablishment of Israel's army. And I'm not talking about the modern UN created diplomatic political state of Israel that is ruled by the United Nations. I'm talking about biblical Israel that is ruled by her king, Yeshua. When that army is reestablished, that means Israel is reestablished. It's not just the army, the 144,000 that's established. All Israel will be established at that time. If you go further down there in Revelation 14, you will read, let me go to Revelation 14, and no, not at Revelation 14, it's Revelation 7. Because after the establishment of the 144,000, in verse 9, we now have a great multitude which no man can count. Who are those people? They're out of every nation, tribe, people, languages, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, dressed in white robes with palm branches in their hands. This is a double entendre here. This can speak about the time after Armageddon is over and Yeshua is ruling and reigning from Jerusalem. But the double entendre is also that this great multitude are the family and friends of the 12 tribes that have 12,000 warriors, because Israel always had family that, they counted the warriors and the men, but they didn't know how many people were actually in Israel. We never really get a count of the people. Who are those people? They're the mommies and the daddies, the sisters, the brothers. You see, there are our wives and our children. That's the great multitude that will be behind the 144,000 when they reappear. Folks, that's us. That's Israel, the citizenry of Israel. And so when they reappear, and there is this war, and the citizenry of Israel now goes through the tribulation. Some of them are from the church of Smyrna, and they are martyred. Some of them are from the church of Philadelphia, and they are saved. They are gathered and they are saved in that hour, that time. I can take you to read that in Revelation 3. And then there are the people from the other churches, some of whom will survive this thing that's coming. When that army appears, Israel is reestablished already. Now it has to go across the river and be formalized. Yes, that's true. But those warriors have a job to do. And that part of that is the ingathering, and, part of it is following the Lamb wherever he goes, and being, in whatever place he wants them to be. When that's all over with, guess what's going to happen? Numbers 31:49. And they said to Moses, "Your servants have taken the sum of the men of war who are under our command, and there lacks not one man of us." So when the world starts laughing and saying, oh my goodness, we have 200 million soldiers from all the nations put together at our disposal. You have, you have 144,000. Oh my goodness, 144,000. The reason that that army will be successful not only is because they are the army of our commander-in-chief, but because they won't die. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but the Jewish commentaries say that if one of these Israelite men got struck with a sword or a spear or something, well, they just, it just didn't faze them. They fell down and then they got back up and kept on fighting. We can expect for Yeshua to do just that kind of thing, because that would have been what Yeshua did right back here in Numbers 31:49. So I wanted to point that out to you, because it's a great source of hope for us as we're going to be whenever we go through what's coming. So anybody else have a comment? Okay, Dawn. Yes, Dawn, go ahead. You're muted.
Oops. Okay, so that is really good. I'm glad you pointed that out. And I was trying to do the math here real quick, but I didn't get it done before I had to put my hand up so that you wouldn't end it. But Leviticus 26:8, and 5 of you shall chase 100, and 100 of you shall put 10,000 to flight. So if we divide 144,000 by 100, that's what, 1,440, is that correct?
Well, it'd be much more than that. It would be 1.44 billion, wouldn't it?
Well, no, I was doing the division. So divide 144,000 by 100. It says 100 of you shall put 10,000 to flight. So if 144,000 divided by 100 is 1,440, then you multiply that by 10,000,
Yes.
and that would equal 14,400,000 that the 144,000 can defeat.
Right.
So that's really cool.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm glad you pointed that out. I just liked to put the math out there.
And I like your comment that the rest of the those in the white robes they're the rest of the harvest. Yes, and we are the harvest. There's two harvests. There's one for ingathering, and there's one for being burned. And so we are the ingathering harvest. John had to leave, and he said that, he would like for us to talk about the consequences of disobedience as per Numbers 32:13, where it says, Yahweh's anger burned against Israel, and he made them wander back and forth in the wilderness 40 years until all the generation who had done evil in Yahweh's sight was consumed. And so does anybody, that is a good point. And I had thought about that as we were reading. And then in verse 33 of that same chapter, it says, be sure your sin will find you out. Absolutely correct. I wish John was here to make his comments about that. And then in chapter 33:50, he reminds us that Yahweh said that we're to destroy all of their images and their cast idols. So images and idols, or idols and images, are to be removed from Israel. And then he asked if we could talk about the significance of the 42 stopovers on the journey. Those stopovers were some hard words to pronounce. I have not studied them. Has anybody in this room studied those stopovers? No? Well, what I've been taught is that they were not actually places, but that's where some events happened. Some things that went wrong, in their journeys as they would travel around. Like, they had to stop because somebody was, throwing a fit over something, no water, no quail, or, whatever. That's what I have been taught, but I have not. So I don't know how to answer John about that because I don't know about those 42 stopovers. So, are there any other questions or comments before we close? Wow. Okay. Well, I'm glad you all were here, and hopefully we'll see you back next week. And so I'm going to pray. Father, thank you for this time together, and I pray you'll bless everyone's Shabbat, because most of them are still in the West, and some are, like us, getting done with Shabbat. But I pray that everybody's Shabbat will be blessed, and bring us back together next week on Shabbat. In Yeshua's name, amen. Okay, everybody. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.